Victoria Kensington believed in endings. Clean endings. Expensive endings. Endings where she won. The wedding of her only son, Lucas Kensington, wasn't just a celebration, it was a correction. A rewrite of history. A public erasure of the one mistake he'd made before she stepped in and fixed his life. That mistake had a name. Elodie Hart. Victoria had said it aloud once, like it tasted sour. The waitress. As if a woman's worth could be measured by the uniform she wore at 22. Now, 4 years later, Victoria stood in the sunlit atrium of the Kensington Estate Chapel, overseeing final preparations like a general before battle. Ivory roses lined the aisle. A string quartet rehearsed softly. Crystal chandeliers glittered overhead, reflecting wealth so old it didn't bother to apologize. Lucas would marry Sophia Van Meer today. Old money meets newer tech billions. A perfect alliance. A perfect wife. And Elodie. Elodie would be invited. Not because Victoria was kind, but because Victoria was cruel with intention. She should see what she lost, Victoria murmured to herself, signing off on the seating chart. Closure is a gift. The invitation had been sent weeks ago, hand-delivered, embossed in gold. Heavy, deliberate, impossible to ignore. The envelope sat on Elodie Hart's kitchen counter like an accusation. Cream-coloured cardstock, gold leaf lettering. The kind of invitation that screamed you don't belong here before it was even opened. Lucas Kensington and Sophia Van Meer request the honour of your presence. Elodie didn't cry. She didn't scream. She stared. Her coffee went cold in her hands as memories rushed back, the kind you never invite. But that show up anyway. 4 years ago. A rainy apartment. Lucas sitting on the edge of her couch, hands shaking, eyes refusing to meet hers. My mother says this isn't realistic, he'd said. She says love isn't enough. And when Elodie had asked him to fight, just once, he hadn't. That night, she'd opened the door for him and let him walk out with his future already chosen. 3 weeks later, the nausea came. Then the test. 2 pink lines that changed everything. She had tried to tell him. Called his phone. Called the estate. Wrote a letter by hand because she was terrified a text wasn't enough. No response. She later learned the truth, but not until it was too late. Now Victoria Kensington was inviting her back into their world. Not for peace. For spectacle. Elodie flipped the envelope over. A handwritten note in sharp, aggressive cursive sat on the back. I thought you might want to see what real happiness looks like. We've reserved you a seat in the back. Victoria. Elodie let out a slow breath. That's when a small voice broke the silence. Mom. Leo stood in the doorway, hair wild from sleep, dragging his favorite blanket behind him. Right beside him was Oliver, identical in every way except the scar on his chin from falling off a swing last summer. 4 years old. Same dark curls. Same blue eyes. Same unmistakable face. The Kensington face. Elodie knelt and opened her arms. Hey, baby. Leo looked at the envelope. Is that a party? She smiled, but there was steel underneath it now. Yes, Elodie said softly. It is. For 4 years, she had protected them. Worked 2 jobs. Finished law school at night. Built a life from nothing. She hadn't gone looking for revenge. But Victoria Kensington had come knocking. And this time, Elodie wasn't walking in as a ghost of the past. She was walking in as the truth. She picked up her phone and dialed one number. Sarah, she said calmly when her best friend answered. I need a dress. And I need 2 custom tuxedos, small ones. There was a pause. Then Sarah whispered, Oh my God. What are we doing? Elodie looked at her sons. We are attending a wedding, she said. And we are not sitting in the back. The ballroom hadn't recovered from the shock, yet the ceremony continued. Pretending nothing had happened. Chloe stood still for a moment at the end of the aisle, her fingers gently tightening around the twins' small hands. Every eye in the room was on her now. The laughter from minutes ago had evaporated into an uncomfortable silence. Beatrice Sterling's champagne glass slipped from her trembling fingers. It shattered. The sound echoed louder than any scream. Guests whispered urgently, heads turning back and forth between Chloe, the twins, and the groom. Ethan Sterling. His face had gone pale. Not confused. Not surprised. Terrified. Because the twins didn't just resemble him. They were him. Same jawline. Same eyes. Same tiny scar above the left eyebrow. Something only Ethan knew he'd had as a child. Chloe took a step forward. Then another. Each heel click felt like a countdown. Beatrice whispered, her voice cracking. Ethan, who are those children? Ethan swallowed hard. His lips parted, but no sound came out. The bride beside him, Lillian, sensed something was wrong. She leaned closer. Ethan, what's happening? Chloe finally spoke. Her voice was calm. Steady. Controlled. Relax, she said softly. I'm not here to ruin a wedding. A pause. I'm here to finish a story you thought money erased. Gasps rippled through the hall. Chloe looked directly at Ethan now. You told me they didn't matter, she continued. You said your mother would destroy us if she found out. You said you'd come back. Her eyes hardened. You never did. One of the twins tugged her hand gently. Mommy, is that him? The question sliced through the room. Ethan's knees nearly buckled. Beatrice staggered backward, clutching a chair. No, this is impossible, she muttered. I made sure. Chloe cut her off, finally turning toward her. You made sure I disappeared, she said. But you forgot one thing. She smiled faintly. Truth has children too, and they always grow up. The officiant slowly stepped away from the altar. This wedding was over, and the Sterling Empire had just begun to crack. The doors of the ballroom slammed shut behind Chloe. Not because she was stopped, because security didn't dare touch her. Two men in black suits stood frozen, waiting for Beatrice Sterling's signal. It never came. Beatrice was shaking now, her perfectly composed mask finally cracking. Her eyes darted toward the aisle, then toward the back doors. Too late. A man in a grey suit stepped forward from the crowd. Mid-40s. Calm. Confident. He held a thin black folder. I believe, he said loudly, this belongs here. Murmurs erupted. Ethan recognized him instantly. Daniel. He whispered. Daniel Cross. Family attorney. The man who had paid Chloe's silence, on Beatrice's orders, 6 years ago. Daniel placed the folder on the altar. Inside were documents, stamped and signed. Birth certificates. 2 names. Lucas Sterling. Noah Sterling. Father. Ethan James Sterling. The bride let out a sharp gasp and stepped away from Ethan. You told me you had no children, she said, voice trembling. Ethan reached out. I can explain. No, she snapped. You can't. Chloe remained silent. She didn't need to speak anymore. The truth was talking for her. Daniel continued. There's more, he said, opening the folder further. DNA confirmation. Hospital records. And a signed non-disclosure agreement. He turned, slowly, toward Beatrice. Signed by you, Mrs. Sterling. Beatrice's face drained of color. You threatened her, Daniel said calmly. You threatened to take the children. You forced her out of the country. The guests were no longer whispering. They were recording. Phones raised. Screens glowing. This wasn't a wedding anymore. It was a public execution of a legacy. Chloe finally stepped forward again. I didn't come for revenge, she said softly. I came for acknowledgement. She looked at Ethan one last time. These boys don't need your money. They don't need your name. She bent down slightly, squeezing the twins' hands. They only need the truth. One of the twins looked up at Ethan. You're our dad, right? The question shattered what was left of him. Yes, Ethan whispered. That single word echoed louder than any confession. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Media had arrived, and the Sterling dynasty was no longer untouchable. This was just the beginning. The sound of sirens grew louder. Then the doors burst open. Camera flashes exploded across the ballroom like lightning. Ethan, is it true you have secret children? Mrs. Sterling, did you silence the mother? Was this wedding a lie? Reporters flooded in, microphones stretched forward, voices overlapping in chaos. Beatrice Sterling snapped back into herself. Fear vanished. Power returned. She straightened her back, lifted her chin, and smiled, a slow, practiced smile that had crushed enemies for decades. "This is a private family matter," she said sharply. "Security, escort these people out." But no one moved. Not security. Not the staff. Because Beatrice Sterling no longer controlled the room. Chloe stepped aside as a woman in a navy blazer entered confidently. She held a badge. "Detective Maria Collins," she announced. "We are here regarding allegations of coercion, intimidation, and falsification of legal documents." A collective gasp. Beatrice laughed, cold and dismissive. "Detective, you're embarrassing yourself," she said. "My lawyers are already aware," Collins interrupted. "And one of them cooperated." Eyes shifted instantly to Daniel Cross. He didn't look away. "I'm done cleaning blood with contracts," Daniel said quietly. Beatrice's smile twitched. Ethan finally found his voice. "Mother, what did you do?" She turned to him slowly. "I protected you," she said. "I protected this family." She glanced at the twins with disgust. Those children were a mistake. Chloe stepped forward. "No," she said firmly. "They were your mistake." The bride, Lillian, removed her ring. It hit the marble floor. "I'm done," she said simply. "This family is poison." She walked past Ethan without looking back. Another crack in the empire. Detective Collins raised her hand. "Mrs. Sterling, we'll need you to come with us." Beatrice laughed again, but this time it sounded hollow. "You think handcuffs scare me?" she said. "I built this city." Collins leaned closer. "Then you know how fast it can turn on you." As Beatrice was escorted away, she locked eyes with Chloe. This wasn't defeat. It was a promise. "You've declared war," Beatrice whispered. "And I never lose." Chloe met her gaze calmly. "Neither do mothers." The doors closed behind Beatrice. Cameras kept rolling. And somewhere beyond the flashing lights, the Sterling name began to burn. The Sterling mansion was silent. Too silent. Beatrice sat alone in her private study. The walls lined with portraits of men who had built fortunes and crushed opposition. Her handcuffs were gone. Her phone wasn't. One call. That was all she needed. "I want the custody file reopened," she said coldly. "And leak everything we have on Chloe." A pause. "Yes. Everything." Across the city, headlines exploded. "Mystery woman at Sterling wedding. Past criminal links." "Did Chloe plan the scandal for money?" "Children used as leverage." Photos surfaced. Old college images. Out-of-context screenshots. Half-truths dressed as scandals. By morning, the internet had chosen sides. Chloe sat in a small apartment, TV glowing in front of her. The twins were asleep beside her. She turned the volume down. She had expected this. A knock at the door. Daniel Cross stepped in, looking tense. "She filed for emergency custody," he said. "Claimed you're unstable. Financially unfit." Chloe didn't flinch. "She's trying to take them." "Yes," Daniel nodded. "And she has judges who owe her favors." Meanwhile, Ethan sat alone in his penthouse, surrounded by unopened messages. His mother's voice echoed in his head. "I protected you." He opened a drawer. Inside was an old photo. Him. Chloe. Happy. He picked up his phone. "Daniel," he said quietly. "I'm ready." At the courthouse steps, reporters gathered again. This time, the headline wasn't a wedding. It was war. Inside the courtroom, Beatrice arrived first, dressed in white, calm, regal. Chloe entered moments later, holding her lawyer's hand. And the twins' birth certificates. Beatrice leaned over as Chloe passed. "You think truth wins?" She whispered. "Money writes the verdict." Chloe met her eyes. "Then today," she said softly, "let's see how expensive lies are." The judge entered. The gavel lifted. And the custody battle that would destroy the Sterling empire began. The courtroom was tense enough to suffocate. Beatrice Sterling sat perfectly still, hands folded. Eyes forward, like a queen waiting for judgment. She believed could never touch her. Chloe stood across the aisle, her jaw tight, one hand resting protectively on the twins' shoulders. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Call your first witness," he said. Beatrice's lawyer rose smoothly. "We call Ethan James Sterling." A ripple passed through the room. Ethan stood. Every step toward the witness stand felt heavier than the last. His mother didn't look at him. She didn't need to. She trusted him. Ethan placed his hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. The lawyer smiled. "Mr. Sterling, do you recognize these children?" Ethan looked at the twins. Then at Chloe. "Yes," he said. "They're my sons." Beatrice's lips curved slightly. "Good. Did you ever intend to abandon them?" The lawyer continued. Ethan hesitated. The courtroom leaned in. "No," he said slowly. "I was forced." Beatrice's smile vanished. The lawyer stiffened. "Forced? By whom?" Ethan turned his head. Toward his mother. "By Beatrice Sterling." Gasps exploded across the courtroom. Chloe closed her eyes briefly. Beatrice finally turned. Her stare was lethal. Ethan continued, voice shaking but firm. "She threatened to destroy Chloe's life. She paid doctors. She paid lawyers. She paid me to disappear." The judge raised a hand for silence. Beatrice stood abruptly. "You ungrateful," she hissed. "Sit down," the judge snapped. Ethan reached into his jacket. Daniel Cross stepped forward. "With the court's permission," Daniel said, "we submit audio recordings." A button clicked. Beatrice's voice filled the room, cold, unmistakable. "You will marry who I choose. Those children will never be Sterling's. If she resists, erase her." Silence. Absolute. Beatrice sank slowly into her chair. This wasn't a crack anymore. It was collapse. The judge looked over the bench. "Mrs. Sterling," he said gravely, "you are facing serious criminal exposure." Ethan's voice broke. "I choose my sons," he said, "even if it costs me everything." Chloe looked at him, not with love, but with respect. The gavel slammed. Custody was no longer a question, it was a countdown. The courtroom felt unreal. No whispers. No phones. No movement. Even the air seemed to wait. Beatrice Sterling sat frozen. Her hands clenched so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. The woman who once controlled politicians, judges, and headlines now looked small beneath the weight of her own recorded voice. The judge leaned forward. "These recordings," he said slowly, "suggest a pattern of intimidation, coercion, and abuse of power spanning several years." Beatrice's lawyer stood up immediately. "Your Honor, these tapes were obtained without consent." Overruled, the judge cut in. They were voluntarily submitted by a cooperating party and corroborated by written agreements. Daniel Cross nodded once. For the first time in decades, Beatrice Sterling had no shield. Chloe held the twins close. Lucas had fallen asleep against her arm, unaware that history was being rewritten around him. Noah stared curiously at the judge, swinging his feet slightly. The judge turned toward Chloe. "Ms. Chloe Rivera," he said, "you've been accused of manipulation, financial instability, and exploiting these children." He paused. "After reviewing the evidence, those accusations are dismissed." A soft exhale escaped Chloe's lips. Tears burned, but she didn't cry. "Not yet." The judge continued. "Full physical and legal custody of the children is granted to their mother." The gavel came down. Once. Hard. Ethan closed his eyes. Beatrice's breath hitched. But the judge wasn't finished. "Furthermore," he added, "this court is referring Mrs. Beatrice Sterling to the district attorney for criminal investigation." The room erupted. Reporters stood despite warnings. Pens flew. Whispers turned into shockwaves. Beatrice rose suddenly. "You can't do this," she said, voice shaking now. "I built this family. I built everything." The judge looked at her coldly. "You built it on fear," he replied. "And fear expires." Security approached her. For the first time in her life, Beatrice Sterling stepped back. "No," she whispered. "This isn't over." As she was escorted out, her eyes locked onto Chloe. This time, there was no threat in them. Only something worse. Hatred mixed with loss. Outside the courthouse, chaos waited. Cameras. Crowds. Breaking news banners flashing across screens. Sterling heiress exposed. Mother wins custody. Billionaire family collapses. Chloe stepped into the sunlight with the twins. Ethan followed. He stopped a few feet away. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, he said quietly, but I want to be there for them. Chloe studied him for a long moment. This isn't about you, she said. It never was. She turned away, but she didn't say no. High above the city, in a dark car speeding away, Beatrice Sterling stared out the window. Her empire was bleeding, but her mind was already working, because queens who fall either disappear or burn everything down on the way. The city moved on quickly. News cycles always did. By the third day, the Sterling scandal had already begun to fade from the front pages, replaced by elections, celebrities, and disasters elsewhere, but inside a quiet, private estate 2 hours outside Manhattan. The war was far from over. Beatrice Sterling sat alone at a long dining table meant for 12. Only one place was set. Her place. The house staff was gone. The phones were silent. The portraits had been turned face down. For the first time in 50 years, Beatrice Sterling had no audience. She stared at the TV mounted on the far wall. Chloe's face filled the screen. Strong. Calm. Untouchable. The headline burned. Mother wins. Sterling dynasty in decline. Beatrice slowly reached for the remote and turned the screen off. Her hand didn't shake anymore. Fear had passed. What remained was clarity. She stood and walked toward a locked cabinet built into the wall. Her fingerprint opened it. Inside were files no one knew existed. Not lawyers. Not Ethan. Not the courts. She pulled out a red folder. On it, a single word. Rivera. Chloe's maiden name. Inside were surveillance photos, addresses, school records, bank movements. Beatrice exhaled. You should have taken the money, she murmured. Across the city, Chloe felt it before she understood it. That strange tightening in the chest. That instinct mothers have when something is wrong. The twins were in the next room, laughing softly as a cartoon played. Chloe checked the locks again. Then her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She didn't answer. A text appeared. You won in court. You won in public. But you didn't win me. Chloe's blood went cold. Meanwhile, Ethan sat in his empty penthouse, surrounded by the ruins of his old life. He hadn't slept. He replayed his testimony again and again. His phone rang. This time, he answered. Mother, he said quietly. Her voice was calm. Too calm. I hope you're enjoying your freedom, she replied. Because Chloe won't. Ethan stood up. What are you doing? He demanded. I'm correcting a mistake, Beatrice said. You chose strangers over blood. They are my sons. A pause. Then, no, she replied softly. They are leverage. The line went dead. Ethan felt the floor drop beneath him. He grabbed his jacket and ran. Back at the apartment, Chloe knelt beside the twins, forcing a smile. Pack your favorite things, she said gently. We are going for a little trip. Why? Noah asked. Chloe brushed his hair back. Because sometimes, she said, bad people don't know when to stop. Outside, a black car sat across the street. Engine running. Watching. Waiting. Beatrice Sterling had lost her empire, but she had just activated her final weapon. Desperation. And desperation doesn't care about consequences. Rain fell in thin, angry lines across the city. Streetlights blurred into gold streaks on the wet asphalt as Chloe's car sped through traffic. Her hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her fingers ached. The twins sat silent in the back seat. They felt it too. Fear doesn't need explaining to children. Mommy, Lucas whispered. Where are we going? Chloe swallowed. Somewhere safe. But even as she said it, she wasn't sure such a place still existed. 3 blocks behind them, the black car followed. No headlights. No hurry. Predators don't chase. They wait. Inside the car, a man adjusted his earpiece. She's on the move, he said. Yes, with both kids. A woman's voice answered. Cold. Controlled. Good, Beatrice Sterling said. Do not touch her yet. Chloe's phone buzzed again. Another message. Running won't help. Every city has my shadow. Chloe slammed the phone face down. Her heart pounded. She turned sharply down a side street, then another. The black car followed every turn. Panic crept in. She pulled into a crowded gas station, lights blazing, people everywhere. She jumped out, opening the back door. Stay here, she whispered to the twins. Lock the doors. She scanned the lot. The black car stopped across the street. Engine still running. Waiting. A man stepped out slowly. Not rushing. Not hiding. Chloe felt her chest tighten. She grabbed her phone and dialed Ethan. Please, she said the moment he answered. She's coming for them. I know, Ethan replied, breathless. I'm on my way. Don't let them out of your sight. At the Sterling estate, Beatrice watched the scene through a live video feed. Gas station. Bright lights. Witnesses. She smiled faintly. Not yet, she murmured. Let her exhaust herself first. She turned to the man beside her. Call the lawyer, she ordered. Prepare the emergency injunction. The man hesitated. That will trigger scrutiny. Beatrice's eyes hardened. I don't care, she said. I want the children by morning. Back at the gas station, a police cruiser pulled in. Chloe exhaled sharply. The man across the street stepped back into his car. The black vehicle disappeared into traffic. Relief washed over her, brief and fragile. She knew better. This wasn't over. Hours later, Chloe arrived at a small motel on the edge of town. Old. Anonymous. Forgotten. She carried the twins inside, locking the door behind her. She leaned against it, shaking. Outside, somewhere far away, Beatrice Sterling poured herself a drink. The glass trembled slightly in her hand. Her first mistake of the night. This is taking too long, she said into the phone. Plan B. The voice on the other end paused. Are you sure? Yes, Beatrice replied. If I can't have them quietly. She looked out into the darkness. I'll take them loudly. The line went dead. Chloe sat on the bed, holding her sons close. She didn't know it yet. But the night wasn't done with her, not even close. The motel room was dark. Only the flickering light of the neon sign. Outside painted red shadows across the walls. Chloe hadn't slept. She sat upright on the edge of the bed. One arm wrapped around Lucas. The other around Noah. Their breathing was slow now. Finally deep enough to mean sleep. She stayed awake. Mothers always do. A faint sound. Not loud. Not sudden. A door handle. Turning. Chloe's heart slammed against her ribs. She moved silently, easing the twins onto the bed, pulling the blanket up as if nothing had changed. Her hand found the lamp and switched it on. The door burst open. 2 men rushed in. Police. One of them shouted. But Chloe saw it instantly. No badges. No radio chatter. Just gloves. Just intent. She screamed. Not in fear. In warning. One man grabbed her arm. The other moved toward the bed. No, she cried, lunging forward. Clawing. Biting. Fighting with everything inside her. A crash echoed through the hallway. Freeze. Gun raised. Ethan stood in the doorway, soaked from the rain, eyes wild. Behind him, real police. The room exploded into motion. Shouting. Hands up. Steel cuffs snapping shut. Chloe collapsed to her knees. Ethan rushed to her, holding her shoulders. They're safe, he said urgently. I swear, they're safe. She didn't answer. She just reached back for the bed. Lucas stirred. Noah turned over. Alive. Unharmed. Chloe finally broke. She cried the way people do when they survive something they shouldn't have. Miles away, Beatrice Sterling watched the news in real time. Failed abduction attempt linked to Sterling family matriarch. Her glass slipped from her hand. It shattered on the marble floor. For the first time, there was no anger. Only disbelief. They were supposed to listen, she whispered. The front door opened. Detective Maria Collins stepped inside, flanked by officers. Beatrice Sterling, Collins said calmly. You are under arrest for conspiracy, attempted kidnapping, obstruction of justice, and multiple counts of coercion. Beatrice didn't resist. She simply sat down, regal until the end. As the cuffs closed around her wrists, she looked up once more. All this, she said softly, for 2 children who won't even remember me. Collins met her gaze. They'll remember what you tried to take. Weeks later, sunlight filled a small park outside the city. No cameras, no headlines, just laughter. Lucas chased pigeons. Noah tripped and laughed at himself. Chloe sat on a bench, eyes closed, breathing freely for the first time in years. Ethan stood nearby, unsure where he belonged. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. I just want to be present. Chloe watched her sons. They'll decide that, she replied, when they're older. She stood up. For now, she added, we heal. In a maximum security cell, Beatrice Sterling stared at concrete walls where portraits once hung. Powerless. Forgotten. History would remember her empire. But legacy. Legacy walked free in the sunlight. Hand in hand. With a mother who never gave up. Thank you for watching.